Welcome back to the AI Accelerator Podcast, where we cut through the noise of AI in the world today and get to what actually works when AI works for you inside your organization. I'm Matt Zembruski, and today my guest is Scott Andersen. Scott spent nearly 3 decades as an enterprise architect at companies like that you might have heard of, like Microsoft, Lockheed Martin, Verizon. And he's also the author of 2 books on AI infrastructure, including his new one, Designing AI Data Centers. Another big hot topic today. I'm very excited to have Scott on the podcast today, and I'm really excited for many reasons. One is that a lot of leaders talk about AI as software. Scott thinks about how AI actually runs, the infrastructure it runs on. That actually changes the strategy. So you're all going to have a great bird's eye view into the mind of Scott and how AI really works inside infrastructure today. So Scott, welcome to the podcast.
Awesome. Well, thank you. I'm very excited. This is a topic that is near and dear to my heart.
Fantastic. So let's get started. Before we dig in into the crazy topics we're going to hit on, fill in the gaps for people. What's your background? How did you end up being doing this work? From what I understand, you started out in the education world and teaching, and then you moved into the wild world of the corporate world and digital AI infrastructure and so forth. How did you get there?
Yeah, well, if you think about it, being a school teacher, you're having to connect to a bunch of people. You're having to build a consensus, and you're having to help people move forward at whatever pace they're moving. And no one in a classroom moves at the same pace, right? You don't get 22 kids and you're like, we're ready to roll. Let's go. Let's hit. It's 0 to 60. We're at 60. Let's keep going. 60. You got half the classes at 15 miles an hour, half the classes at 35 miles an hour, half the classes at 75 miles an hour. Right. Those are the ones the cops are usually chasing. But the reality is, right, people move at different paces. And so, I kind of was doing that. And I met a wonderful person. And I was a tenured school teacher. And I said to her, and she was literally graduating college. She took the long plan to make it through her bachelor's degree. And so she was graduating college and she was looking for a job. And I said, well, if you find a job in another city that pays more than what I'm making as a tenured school teacher, I'll move. And so 3 months later, I was living in a new city, looking for a new job. And I got offered a job by the school system, but they wanted me to take a pay cut, a huge pay cut, like enough that it would have really impacted what I was doing. And at the same time, this computer training company said to me, hey, you're a teacher, you know computers, why don't you come be a trainer? So I did that, started making more money, moved to help desk. And from there, I kind of became a consultant. And for the last 30 years, I've been a consulting architect working on international, national, US DOD, US government, state government, local government projects. But I've always evolved with the shift, right? So I was a collaboration person in the 2000 era, internet, web, collaboration. I moved into becoming a cloud person in the 2010 range because, cloud was the big thing. Cloud was the new thing. And then lately I've moved to being an AI person because I personally believe AI is going to augment humans and make us better. And I refuse to buy into the doom and gloom. That's me.
That's awesome. That's great. Yeah, I echo the same sentiment there, Scott. Fantastic. So that catches us up to today. So now, for our curious listeners out there, the business leaders who are leading all the knowledge workers, the tens of millions of knowledge workers out there that are getting so much work done with or without AI, right? Because there's a lot of adoption still to do. But catch everybody up to, so what do you do today? Who do you do it for? Are you just doing one job with one company? Are you a consultant to the industry? Is it tied into data centers? Is it tied into digital infrastructure within companies? All of the above. There's a lot for your background. You're highly qualified for a lot of different directions. So what's the short version of what you're doing today and who you're doing it for?
Well, I'm working on a contracting gig working for a company doing RFP responses on the federal government side. And then I'm also working with another organization and we're doing AI assessments. So I'm actually building. So I have a book. You mentioned the two books that are in the market now, Infrastructure for Designing AI Networks and Designing AI Data Centers. I have a third book. It's called Organizational Debt or Why Your AI Project Fails. The publisher just optioned it. I literally just finished all the paperwork that the publisher sent me, and they have accepted it. And now they're going to go through the hard part for me, which is they're going to edit everything, send it back to me, and I have to clean it up. But in that book is a concept of an organizational assessment, and that's what I've been really focused on. But I also do an AI newsletter for about 200 of my closest friends, and that constantly growing, trying to get information out. Now, I do AI news differently than most people do. I actually go to the AI engines and I ask them, tell me what's the biggest news from last week? And I ask each one, and I literally paste into the newsletter format that one of my friends designed for me. I paste it in. So you see what Claude says, you see what OpenAI says, you see what Meta says. And then I do analysis because it's interesting, right? Last week, OpenAI had 2 agents that went rogue and attacked Hugging Face like 116,000 times in a minute. But just a massive thing, right? If you asked OpenAI, that issue is resolved. It's gone. It's forgotten. All the other vendors, though, all had a really long, hey, by the way, this is a big crisis. This is security. This is doom and gloom. And so it's really interesting to me to see what each of the engines actually share. So that's part of my newsletter that I share, put it out on LinkedIn so people can download it. It's free. I don't charge anything for it, but it's just kind of that thing. And then I have my organizational assessment that I've been doing and helping organizations, remove the components that will cause their AI projects to fail. Because we're seeing a lot of projects go and they have very successful pilots. I mean, it's amazing how many more successful pilots in AI to date, I think, than all of the successful pilots I've done in my career. And I planned the crap out of projects in the past. When you're migrating international users, you got to be very careful, right? You got to spend the time, do it right. But AI projects go to pilot and then fail. Not after pilot, or excuse me, not before pilot, not during pilot, after pilot. Because the one flaw today is you have the human in the loop. And that human hero makes your pilot successful. And a person, great pilot, or let's say you got 10 power users that are really making your pilot successful. They can scale to 1,000 users, no problem. Ask them to scale to 10,000 users and your project fails. And the reason is the humans can't do it. It's not possible. It's not feasible. So we've been looking at all the different things that cause organizations to struggle as they deploy AI. And the one, I'll leave the magic bullet that we found. It's really quite simple. Clearly define success. If you know what success is, failure is not an option.
That's a very good one. That's fantastic. There's so much I want to unpack about all that, Scott. Yeah. So first of all, the organizational assessments that you do, sort of, how do those work? How involved are they? If there's, there's a lot of, because what we've found with our company is there's a lot of business leaders out there who want to do something with AI. They know they need to do something. They know it can add a lot of value to their organization. They're not sure because of the mixed media, doom and gloom or pie in the sky, whatever it is, but they're not sure. Most of them don't really know what's possible with AI. So walk us through how the organizational assessment works. How much time does it take? What's the investment in that? Like, is it just like an hour? Is it a whole, 20-page survey they have to fill out? How does that work? What is the outcome of that? And then how does that lead into like a successful something that they're going to do with AI?
I got to do the Dr. Evil. It costs $1 million. Yeah, right. Got to do that. You asked the cost, right? So they're right now there are two flavors of the assessment. One is a light assessment, and we have two flavors of the light assessment. One is the company does all the questionnaires, does all that, submits it to us, we review it, and we give them their output. Now they're going to get two scores. Both of those scores are designed. One is designed to take a look at their AI operational space within the organization. The other is their technical space. What do they have, right? What are the rules, right? If you're talking about a U.S. federal government agency, let's say the IRS, we do not want them putting our tax returns into AI, right? Because the AI engines, not their fault, it's the way they're built, are going to use that to, to train on in the future. So a year from now, your tax returns are suddenly visible to everybody because it was data that was used to train, right? So we want to make sure that we understand what the confines of that is. And so the light assessment, again, they can do most of the inbound or inputting of data, and then we do the reviews. That's normally between 40 and 80 hours. So it's not a long process. Now, if they want to do the full assessment, that's going to take a lot longer. Because we're going to go through and we're going to give you an absolute resolute score. This is what your score is. And it's on a scale. And the scale is clearly defined. That's actually defined in my book that's coming out, but it's also clearly defined in the output that you're going to get. You'll be able to say, okay, resolutely, we can go forward. We are ready for AI. And then one of my partners in this group that I'm working with came up with a brilliant idea of doing a quick hit diagnostic. So that's what we're working on right now. We're going to release that very soon. That'll be available where you literally can go answer 20 questions and the tool will come back and say, not only should you not do AI, but you probably should stop spelling it as well. But you get right. There'll be a range of outcomes. Hopefully, if you get that one, and you know what, I think I'm going to actually write that into the code. That's a great error response. If you should not spell AI. In fact, you should probably put your computer away. But yeah, so you'll get a range of this is what's going to happen, and then we'll offer to come in and do a light assessment. We'll offer to come in and do a full assessment, whatever's best for you. And look, it may just be that the diagnostic is enough, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of organizations that I've worked with, as you pointed out, I've worked with a lot of companies over the years. A lot of them are really smart. I mean, they're very, very, very smart, very skilled. They have very intelligent IT people, very intelligent leadership. They're gonna help you be successful. And then in the light assessment and the full assessment, we're working right now to add in some new stuff so there's a great podcast that I listen to from MIT Sloan all about AI. And one of the things that they were talking about is a J curve. And the J curve is really cool. It basically says, anytime there's a new technology, there's a J curve, which means, J goes like this and then J goes down.
Yeah.
Right. And I think in the AI world right now, we're in that downside, right? We are in that going down. But the thing that people always forget is the J curve is really important because then it goes up. And when it goes up, it's ahead of where it was when it started. And I do believe personally, AI is going to do that. So we're building in the J curve process for people in the light and full assessment. So you can go through and look at your organization. Because, I mean, honestly, if I hear one more CEO say, "Oh, we adopted AI and we laid off 10,000 people,"
I know. Oh my goodness.
Well, yeah. What happened when an automaker did that? They laid off all their QA people because AI is going to take it over. And what happened a month later? They had to rehire all those QA people back at a 10 to 15% salary bump because they weren't coming back if they didn't get more money. So we have to be really careful. AI is not going to lay people off right now. AI is not going to replace human beings. It's actually in a situation where if we use it intelligently, it augments what we're doing, makes us better. And who doesn't need to be better? I know I do. A lot better.
Hold on. Yeah, 100%, Scott. That's so true. I love, you and I are very much in sync with our perspective on the marketplace and with what's out there. And I want to dive into more of the implementation side that you see from a perspective? So the assessment that you do, the organizational assessment with the light and the full and the diagnostic, et cetera, that's mostly a readiness assessment, right? Like how ready are you to start leaning into AI and doing the adoption of AI and so forth. So when they're doing it, and you mentioned like the IRS and federal agencies, and even most companies have proprietary data that they don't want to be sharing with the models, right? I mean, it's just the way it is. Certainly, if you have military government contracts, anything like that you do, you need to be very, very careful. So 2 questions. Number one, the work that you do, what size of company does it apply to? Is it mid-market, large enterprise only? Is it all of the above? And then because you're a lot of experience with data infrastructure, what is your, I guess if you were speaking to a business leader who maybe doesn't understand a lot about AI, how would you describe the appropriate way for them to protect their data and keep it safe? Is it to bring a model in-house that's an open source model, or is it other things? So just describe that a little bit, sort of your, because you understand the architecture of it all, and 99.9% of people do not. So I'd love to hear, if you're talking to a business leader, what would be your recommendation? So what size of companies do you engage with? And then what would be your general recommendation for the proprietary level of data that people want to protect?
Well, so far we've been engaging with, all the way down to the bottom and all the way up to the top. Although we're not doing massive, huge companies yet. We will. The assessment would work for anybody. I would say if you're in a large company, you probably can't use a light assessment. You probably have to do the full, just because it's not possible. So, but to kind of get to the gist of the question, right? What's going to cause you to trip, right? Because that's the big thing, right? Mm-hmm. What's going to cause you to trip, right? So I've been doing international migrations for years. I mean, I've done some of the biggest migrations that Microsoft ever did. They're painful. And I've done big federal deployments as well. Again, they're painful. Right. The very first rule I always tell, company and government leaders, if you have a partner that comes in and tells you that they're going to give you a pain-free migration, throw them out the nearest window. There's no such thing. I don't care what happens. Right. There's always that one PC that didn't update a month ago, and that update is critical, and you deploy the software and boom, shakalaka, you are now looking at a bricked PC, right? Or worse, it's an iPhone, or, back in the day, BlackBerry, right? So the conversation, really from my perspective, the conversation starts with understanding your data first and understand the security confines of that data. Right? Not all data needs to be secured. Not all data is proprietary, right? Many years ago, I worked with a bunch of folks at Microsoft, and we developed a knowledge management system. We called it ICE, Intellectual Capital Exchange. Awesome name, right? And when you worked on the team, the director, he was a hoot, used to call everybody a freaking ice hole. Right? That's what we were. We were ice holes. But the concept is, understand your data. Where is it? Where does it live? How do you connect to it? What is the security around it? Okay, that's the first thing. The next thing is you really have to have a very hard conversation with what are we willing to give up, and what are we not willing to give up? Because if you're not going to give something up, then you have to seriously look at the open source models. Now, I have to be honest, I've been playing a lot with the NVIDIA stuff lately. It's pretty good. I'm really impressed. It works really well. You can run it on a single GPU. Shockingly, that NVIDIA would write something that works on a single GPU, because I do not have a 40 GPU cluster in my house. I only have one big, massive GPU sitting in my desktop. So understanding, where you're going to run the model. Now, the thing that I pushed for, and I continue to push for, is the reality of doing just-in-time AI. That's kind of my thing that I talk a little bit about. I've written a number of articles about it. But just-in-time AI is where I have a small language model on a device. Right? I can loaded. In fact, I have 4 models right now sitting on my iPhone that I can run locally. Now, they're limited because they're in an environment that's controlled, but they're effectively, I'm able to connect with them and use them. So imagine a sales rep goes and, right, his calendar or her calendar is visible, and the AI system looks at it and goes, oh, you're going to Nematode Motors, Bob the Builder, I don't know, I'm trying to think of other kids shows, Teletubby Land and Barneyville,
Yeah.
right? You're going to those 4 customers today. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to preload their last 30 orders. I'm going to preload any customer complaints that they've had. I'm going to preload any problems that they've had onto your phone, right? So now the sales rep gets there. The CIO goes, what the heck happened? You guys shipped me a broken widget 3 weeks ago. I got 10,000 widgets. 1 was broken, right? Sales rep can go, oh, wait, yeah, that's actually been shipped. The replacement's on its way. It's supposed to arrive tomorrow. Right? You give them the concept of just-in-time information. So then you have to think about, right, that's the other part. How do I secure the data? But also, when do I need the data? And where do I need the data? Personally, my view, my vote, cell phone is the client for AI in the future. If you think about the power of your cell phone today, I mean, there's more oomph in my iPhone than there was on the Apollo 11 computers. And those computers were big. I mean, think about it. Those things weighed almost 800 pounds. NASA worked really hard to get them down to 800 pounds. But, you know, my cell phone does not weigh 800 pounds, although the outer case feels like it weighs 800. But yeah, so now you've got that. So you've got, you know, where is the data? How do I get to it? What security confines do I have for it? And then what do I need to do? Can I run it as a local model? What can I do with the local models? And then, of course, as you brought out, right, there is the concept of open source. Now, I project the open source model is going to change. I don't think China is going to be allowing the open source companies in China to continue to release nearly state-of-the-art models in the next year. I think they're going to start limiting it. I think they probably should have limited it already from an economic perspective. I don't think it's a smart idea to let them loose, but I understand why they did it to gain credibility. It worked. They're credible, but you need to get right. So open source models are interesting in that sense. I see a lot of value in considering open source models. And again, as I mentioned, the NVIDIA models, really, I've been unbelievably impressed with them. Not as impressed with Facebook's Meta product, the Llama, but they've discontinued Llama basically actively, and they're moving to a pay model. But and I also have seen the OpenAI open source model, which was questionable.
Yeah, interesting. That's fascinating. So we may not be able to answer this whole next question, but I want to ask you one more good one before we wind it down. Is so when you're in the implementation phase of it, okay, they've done the assessment, they want to do more. We're talking about some of the implementation details about this data is like really it's PII data. It's very proprietary. It's whatever. It's special data that we don't want. We don't want to leave the 4 walls of our building, right? So do you partner with companies? Does your company do some of that architecture type work? Because clearly it seems like where you would recommend, so say it's a mid-sized company, say they're $500 million a year and they have 1,000 employees and they're, you know, all knowledge workers and they do a lot of things, whatever they're doing, production or manufacturing. But just say it's that type of size company. Is it a multi-part solution then that you'd recommend for them? Like, all right, we're going to do this internal for the proprietary stuff. That's where that data gets processed with AI. So we sort of like put some, like you said, like an internal AI engine in there. It's not going out to any of the frontier models. It's not going out to the cloud. It's just staying internal. But then we can do some cloud stuff too on the outside because that's just like the easy stuff. Maybe it's like field service stuff that just it works with more public information, et cetera. So I guess 2 parts. Do you get involved with that type of implementation? And then is it typical for that sort of mid-market company? Is it typical that they would have like a multi-component deployment of it, or is it just like drop this AI solution in and it fits it all across the org?
Well, I haven't seen anybody go as complex as what you just described. I'm seeing people, I'm an advocate. I've been an architect for 30 years. I'm an advocate of crawl, walk, run. The answer to your question is most of the organizations are still in the crawl phase. I haven't seen a lot of walks yet. And a walk would be where you start deploying that more complex solution. But yeah, right now I do see a lot of organizations doing that split. Internal, private, our private proprietary data is internal in an open source model. And then we use the public cloud for, the broader things. Now, there is the fatal flaw of image generation. The local models don't do as well by any stretch of the imagination. OpenAI and Google's Nano Banana do pretty well. And Google gets they get an A+ for the name. Image Gen is a nice name, but Nano Banana rocks. I mean, I use Image Gen more than I use Nano Banana, but I snicker when I use Nano Banana because it's the better name. So you want to be careful. You want to have that structured split. Most organizations, as I said, are still crawl. So they're looking at that initial phase. We're going to help them. We're going to architect the solution. We're going to help them get to the point where they are. The painful reality for most companies is data cleansing and getting the data to a position where it's effective. Because of that, that becomes the sticking point initially. After that, we start helping them pick up more. I can't wait for the first customer I have that gets to walk. Boy, when I find somebody that's running, that's going to make me happy.
Yeah, that's exciting. I'm looking forward to talking more with you about this outside the podcast too, because there's a lot of we have similar perspectives in the way that we're engaging with companies, with our company, your company, et cetera. So we can talk more into it. But I appreciate everything that you shared, because I know a lot of what you just shared are answers to the questions that a lot of these, top level executives in these mid-market and even large enterprise companies are dealing with right now. Because we hear these questions all the time. That's why I asked them of you, because you have a unique perspective on it. So I really appreciate your time, attention, and all the insights that you shared, Scott. I'm looking forward to having you back on the podcast and maybe doing something else that we could do together to sort of collaborate and just communicate with the marketplace.
Awesome. Sounds good to me. Thank you so much. It was a blast talking to you.